when there's a lot of anxiety or stress in our lives, the survival part takes over and the intuitive, which is very subtle until you develop it, and then it is rather loud. But the anxiety or the stress creates a scrambling of the system. You won't be able to pull it in and rely on it if you live in a constant state of anxiety or stress, because your body has to go where it's most important. And at that point, it's keeping you alive and maybe trying to lower your blood pressure so you don't stroke out. And that can create a humongous block. And that's often why I ask people to pause, take a breath, and find out what else is going on. Because, hi, I'm Vicki Baird, and I have created my successful business by helping other people become successful in their own lives. This podcast, Intuition, Your Success Compass, is the tool you've been looking for to find your due north. We all have a soul and we all have an internal knowing. And in this podcast, you will learn to combine what your soul knows, your human self's brilliant intelligence, and the connection to the desire to live a life that is fully successful in whatever that definition is for you. Sound good? Good. Now let's get to it. Thank you for joining me for another episode. This is airing on April 19th, so I want to say a very happy anniversary of the birth of my amazing granddaughter, Mackenzie Lynn. They are my heart. They are the reason that I found humor again, why I was able to keep going when times it felt like I couldn't keep going because I would never want to let them down, or my daughter Kayla. So I am incredibly grateful for what this human who chose me in this lifetime to be her Nana came to this earth, had some bumpy experiences, and is just doing amazingly and is a gifted soul, kind, funny, ridiculously ironic sense of humor. And I am already blown away by what and how she will impact the future of this world. So thank you, Mackenzie Lynn. And I will now get on with the episode. But how amazing it was that it would land on that day. And I just, this day, now that you're listening to it, just could not let that pass. I don't know if she listens to all my episodes, but someday she will. I want to do the top 10. It's actually going to be the top 20 if we add them together. But I want to do the top 10 reasons why you may not trust your intuition. And then we're going to follow up with the top 10 reasons why you ought to trust your intuition. And I thought this would be a fun way to incorporate some of the topics I've been covering lately about how to empower yourself, how to create that sense of self within, to love your soul, and to, be that amazing being that you agreed to come in and experience. So I thought, well, if I'm sitting around, I'm thinking about topics, and I'm like, what do I hear the most about intuition development, or the reasons that people give me that they don't trust their intuition? Because often I'll say to a client, what does your gut tell you on this? What does your intuitive knowing reflect back to you? And they'll say, I don't know. And I'm like, I think you do. But if we get quiet, can you hear it a little bit better? Or what's the reason coming up? I don't think they're always excuses. Sometimes that's true if you have somebody who just wants the attention for not knowing. I think most times when we say, I don't know, we truly don't know yet. And it might take a little bit more delving into to figure out. So I thought I'd cover the top 10 first, why you may not trust your intuition, and maybe you'll recognize yourself in here. And then you'll also perhaps not feel so alone. Or as I interject some of my coaching experience and my own experience of what the heck is going on here with my own wiring, maybe it'll help. So the first one I think that comes up a lot is a cultural or societal conditioning. So a messaging, right? That it's not okay to trust it. You're better off going with logic or rationalization. It's more reliable than intuition. That's not true, by the way. And it leads people to discount their intuition, and I really do intend to bring about the information that it's not an either-or situation. We need our rational mind, our logical sense, as much as we need our intuition. They can work cohesively and with a very effective level of success when you allow both of them to be on board. So, culturally or societally, we may hear that it's not a good idea. And sometimes that is connected to the emotions of things too. People don't want to listen to your emotions. Now, conversely, there are societies that depend on their intuition and their clairaudience and their claircognizance and clairvoyance at a much higher level than they depend on their practical information. So they listen to the vibrations of the earth and all of that that's available on a much higher level. And that's fantastic because we all came from that place until logic and I don't know, I think it's control really that those that were making the rules and such didn't want us to depend on our intuition. So that's the first one. I feel like fear comes up a lot. The fear of making a mistake or being wrong leads to doubting intuition and not using it or trusting it. Well, life is about making constant adjustments and taking more than one take on something and trying something more than once. So, of course, there's always the likelihood that you could be wrong about something. When I do a reading or when I'm coaching, I'm very clear to say to people, I am not the end all and be all. I do not know everything. I am very good with being wrong because I feel like when we can admit that it's okay to be wrong, we get more information because as soon as you realize, oh, that didn't hit right on the mark, the next level is tweaking it and tuning into it a little bit more. And some of my favorite clients to work with are the ones that say, Vicky, I know it's not all 100% accuracy, but I need your 75% accuracy to then guide myself to what's in the best interest. And I love that because that allows for both of us to be wrong, which means we will be correct more than we will be wrong once you depend on it. And I'll cover that in a second. The next one I feel like is simply a lack of experience because we may have been told you're not correct. And then perhaps you haven't kept the data, haven't kept the track of when you are correct. So you don't have that information coming back to you. You get a lack of experience. People who are simply had not had enough experience in trusting their intuition are hesitant to rely on it. And that makes sense, right? Like if you haven't practiced riding a bike, you are going to be hesitant that you're going to tip over and crash, and you probably will. But the more you get the balance of it and the more you trust that the majority of the rides you went for, you only fell on a couple. Like I've been on hundreds and hundreds of rides. I've fallen twice, both times because I was clicked in and I no longer use those shoes. It was my lack of experience with the shoes that led me to fall over. In hindsight, should have ridden the bikes with just my sneakers on for quite a long time and before I went to the shoes that I use for clicking in and spinning class because you're not going to fall off a spin class bike. So the lack of experience, but there's only one way to no longer have a lack of experience, and that's to practice. So I will say to people, okay, Practice receiving how much your order is going to be when you check out in the grocery line. Unless, of course, you're using one of those scanners or, and I have so been here, you are watching every penny so you know how much it's going to be before you get there. But you can tune into how much that might be, or the bill at a restaurant, or before you open your electric bill. Oh, that's probably not a good example because people are being hit with stupid high ones because of the greed of our system. But who's calling you on the phone? Don't have a special ringtone set up, but see if you can intuit who's calling, and that will give you more experience. You don't have to lay out your intuition in a major meeting or anything like that. Learn to trust it first. And that's where the lack of confidence comes in. If you don't practice and you don't get some like feedback, you don't get the stats, then you're not going to be able to build that confidence or that self surety. And that will just continue the cycle of doubting your intuition. Start with playing cards. You only have black and red. Flip them over, and so that you can't see what color they are, and feel into or intuit or just know what color it's going to be. It'll build your confidence because, listen, it's a 50-50 ratio. And then maybe you move on to an Uno deck where you have more colors and you expand your horizons, that you practice. Intuition is something that we all have and it is gifted to us, but that gift does not get to become its fullest expression without some effort and some work to it. And it feels good to put that effort in. One of the things that can be difficult is in doing this is the external pressure from others, the pressure to conform. That goes back to the societal, or cultural, or religious, to what the group expects. It can cause people to doubt their intuition. I was working with a scientist a few years ago, and he was absolutely brilliant in his intuitive knowing, but he wouldn't listen to it. And it was causing a conflict in his career because, he was in research. And I feel like a lot of discoveries, a lot of openings, and a lot of brilliant patents and all of that come about because somebody listened to their gut as much as they listened to the science. And he was not listening to it. So he was shutting off a portion of himself because he was trying to fit into this bubble of researchers. And I suggested to him that perhaps he join a group outside of work that was more like a think tank where ideas could be tossed around and it didn't depend, his income didn't depend on it. He didn't have to present to his boss what he felt because his boss was not going to hear that. He only wanted the science and the data and the numbers. But what was happening is by not listening to his intuition, he was not doing his most effective research. So as he went over and participated in the think tank, he began to trust his intuition and trust his vision and his knowing more. And then he learned to bring it into the office. And I said to him, listen, the first 10 years I did this, I did not tell anybody that's what I was doing at work. I just had good ideas. And I would back it up with how it was going to help the trajectory of the business by speaking to the boss or the executive director in a way that they needed to hear. It was only after that I went out and I went on my own and built this business that I now say, well, you want to hire me because I will save you money and I will save you the time of trying something 85 different ways. And maybe it's down to 40, but we're still going to save you that time. So the external pressure for my scientist was keeping him from living a fully expressed life because it's not only about his income or his business or his career, it was about his happiness and allowing all of him to show up. And he became a much more playful dad and a much more available partner because he wasn't stuffing part of himself down. So when we eased the bit of the external pressure because the think tank was more playful, he got to see who he was, and then he felt some confidence to bring that to work. I love I love that for him. Part of what was happening in that was another one of the reasons, which is overthinking or overanalyzing the situation. It can cause you to ignore your intuition because it creates a disconnect between your head, your heart, your soul, and it makes the logical part of the brain what gets relied on, and everything gets reasoned out. And I find a lot of the times people talk themselves into horrific situations by stinking thinking and overthinking and overanalyzing. And there are those of you who are wired to be more analytical and more heady types, right? So that's fantastic. That's brilliant. That's also the balance of our universe is by having our heart centered, having our head centered, and having our kinesthetically centered, physically active people who have to think on the move and use their body and everything. So we need a balance of all of this to help our universe be successful and to help humans be successful. If you have a tendency of overthinking, you may look to the other parts of you and say, okay, my head says to do this. I'm going to ask my heart what it wants, and I'm going to ask my soul what it wants. And you can do all of this in your head. You do not have to have the conversation out loud standing in the elevator, but you do want to become aware of all of the parts of you so that you don't lean too far into the overanalyzing or overthinking, 'cause it can get exhausting, and it leads to ignoring the intuition because there's a fallacy that if I overthink this or I overanalyze this, I'll be prepared for every possible outcome, and you can't be. That just doesn't work mathematically either because there's too many variables, and that leads to the next reason why people may not trust your why you may not trust your intuition, and that's anxiety or stress. When there's a lot of anxiety or stress in our lives, the survival part takes over and the intuitive, which is very subtle until you develop it, and then it is rather loud. But the anxiety or the stress creates a scrambling of the system. It's like if you have an antenna that you're using, but the weather is crappy, you will not get a good signal on the TV. And that's the same with your intuition. You won't be able to pull it in and rely on it if you live in a constant state of anxiety or stress because your body has to go where it's most important, and at that point, it's keeping you alive and maybe trying to lower your blood pressure so you don't stroke out, and that can create a humongous block, and that's often why I ask people to pause. Can we just have a moment here? Can we take a space, take a breath, and find out what else is going on? Because a lot of the times it looks to me like people are walking around with just their heads floating around and the rest of their body is being dragged for the process. And it's important to stop and ask the body what it needs. Another reason that you may not be trusting your intuition is there is some type of strong emotion or an emotional attachment. Either way, it can be fear or it can be a desire for something to come out the way you want it to come out, and that influences your what you're receiving in messages and what you know to be true, and it makes it really difficult to trust your not just your intuition, but your instincts too. I have seen people when I'm working with them want something so much and they desire it so much that they're not listening to their logical brain about the reality of it actually happening. And that is just as powerful as having fear be a block. A huge desire can be a block. A lot of the times this comes up in relationships where the person is like, "But I want them to be my person," and, that's disrespectful. If they don't wanna be your person, they don't have to be your person. And do you really want someone who doesn't want to be your person? So, having that desire or pushing through the desire to work for that one company and then finding out that the CEO is a complete ass and you don't align with their message, the desire got in the way. Sure, you can make it happen, but will it be in your best expression or experience? And it probably won't be in your joy. So emotional attachment can very much get in the way of listening and developing and accessing your intuition. There's past experiences. So if you've had a negative experience in the past where maybe you shared something that you knew but couldn't prove, which is a lot of intuition until it happens. A lot of intuition is knowing something and then waiting for that to actually happen. And it takes a lot of trust in the universe and yourself and in situations for that to be something that you follow. So I can understand why people are hesitant to do it. Sometimes it feels like, you know, jumping off a cliff and just trusting that you'll be okay. I wouldn't suggest that, but that's what it can feel like sometimes. And past experiences, if you shared in the past something that didn't come to be because maybe the circumstances change, or the opposite. I've had people share their knowings with family members and such, and then it gets thrown back on them that they caused the situation or they're a freak or how could you know that? You must have caused some of the problem. So being judged or, being looked at in that way can have people being like, no, thank you, ma'am. I do not want to trust my intuition, which is why I think it's important to be selective of who you share your knowings with and your gut sensations and your visions and everything, because the past experiences may have you shutting down and not wanting to trust it. And then the top 10, it really is the top 10 of why people may not trust their intuition is a simple lack of self awareness. I've shared before that up until I was 29 ish, I didn't even know what the word meant. So there is a majority of the population walking around that don't understand what intuition is. It's one of the reasons I've left the word intuitive life coach or intuitive success coach in my label, in my title, because one, I want people to know that this is where I'm coming from. This is what I'm going to be using, but I want to normalize it. I want it to become like Kleenex, where we're depending on it and everything that we receive, it becomes absolutely generic, right? Like we're so trusting and dependent of our telepathy, of our empathy, of our clairvoyance, that it becomes just that average thing, right? Not every tissue out there is a Kleenex brand, but I want this to be so in everybody's daily existence that the word is interchangeable and not just used in a branding type of thing for cars and all of that. Although I'm happy to see that. I do like that it's there. So there's a lack of self awareness. People are not tuned into their own emotions, even afraid of their own emotions. And you can't have intuition without imagination or emotion. So they may not be able to recognize or even trust that intuition is on board. And sometimes I'll be working with someone and they'll share something with me and I'll pause them and I'll say, do you recognize that you said that a couple weeks ago? And they're like, no, I didn't. And I will look back at my notes and say, you did. And I want to affirm this because in order to develop our intuition further, we have to be able to pause it in the moment and say, I got that. I got that. Of course, keeping in mind that we're using all of this to the highest being and the highest desire. So to cause no harm. So a lack of self awareness. There's a great level of the population that are not tuned in, and they may be younger souls. This happens with truly younger souls that they're working on their root chakra, and that's about survival. It may not even be something they're willing to access because it's so foreign, the concept, and they'll likely negate it or poo-poo it or whatever. So you can think of a lot of people in politics have this because they're working from a lower chakra. Not everyone, thankfully, but they're working from that lower chakra. and not exactly accessing it. Lack of self awareness, which is also why I started this podcast, because I wanted to share with whomever came across it. I'm not going to shove it down anybody's face that they have to trust their intuition. And one of the things I ask of the people close to me is, you don't have to believe in that. You have to believe in me, and that I would never knowingly hurt someone or lead them astray. If you believe in me, you don't have to believe in intuition and how it works and everything. But often they're the ones that end up sharing the stories of pretty amazing things, don't realize that it's intuition. So those are the top 10 that I came up with as I was thinking about what people often say to me. And then I was going to run with that as a full episode because I figured I can cover half an hour. But I want to, right on the heels of it, do the top 10 reasons that you ought to trust your intuition. And in no particular order, because I did like a download to do this, but in no particular order. Okay. So don't think if I get to 10, it's because, or when I get to 10, that I think it's most important. It changes on a daily basis why I love my intuition so much. So the first one is quick decision making. When you develop this knowing, this trust in self, and then the connectivity to your soul, to beings, to, yeah, those on the other side. Although if they gave crappy advice here, I wouldn't listen to them on the other side. Quick decision makings, you will be able to use yourself as a divining rod to know if it's in your best interest to do something. It can help you based on those immediate, literally the gut feelings, because your solar plexus is your first psychic sense. That's where we begin to wake up and open up to a knowingness. And that's why we call it the gut sense, right? Trusting your gut. And it's helpful in situations where you need to act fast, where you need to make a decision. Often, like really good doctors, EMTs, law enforcement, teachers, those that need to make a decision very quickly are usually extremely intuitive people, and they've learned, and they'll say it's their training and everything, but it can help you make a quick decision. There have been times where I've been offered to collaborate with someone, and in the past, I would put it off and call it manners, right? I'll get back to you. Now I make the decision right on the spot because my knowing is so trustworthy that even if it doesn't make sense to my head, and a lot of the times it doesn't, I will know that I'm supposed to say no, thank you. And I will do that. Sometimes I find out later why that wasn't a good idea. Like I find out the person isn't who they're representing themselves to be, or we just don't mesh, or the company's not great to work with. And sometimes I never find out, but it doesn't matter because once I've made a decision, I don't lament about the decision I've made. Okay. So, and the second thing is the inner wisdom, right? And that's part of being able to make a quick decision is you learn to depend on your inner wisdom so much because intuition is a reflection of your inner wisdom. It is the it is the rocket and your wisdom is the fuel. So it guides you towards making some of the best decisions in your life. I once purchased a vehicle without taking it for a ride, and the salesperson was so confused. He's like, I don't understand. You're not going to test drive this. And it was a used vehicle. And I said, nope, don't need to. When I saw it online last night, I knew it was my car. I knew it was going to be a great buy. And it was a Chrysler Pacifica. And people told me, don't buy that car, it's terrible, it's like the neon. Well, I had a neon that went so long that I ended up giving it away because I didn't want any, like, attachments to someone having purchased it. I actually donated it to a family, and the same thing was true of that Pacifica. That thing was still going not so strong, but it was still doing a pretty dang good job when I traded it in. So being able to make those decisions on the fly, I knew that my gut was correct and I knew that was my car and I knew I was going to go get it. So that actually ties into the third one, which is non rational information it was not rational for me to forego a test drive, to not actually get in the car and go for a drive. But I knew it was a waste of my time. And I didn't want to be in the car with somebody I didn't know and just do that weird talk thing. And although I can talk to a fence post, the non rational information, it wasn't rational to believe that was my vehicle. But I have a trust in my track record, and it allows me to make informed decisions. If the price had been ridiculously overpriced, or if I felt like the interest rate wasn't great, I wouldn't have gone with it. But that ability to make a decision got me in there so that I was timely in negotiating the price, and my conscious mind didn't need to go do a whole heck of a lot of research. And the ability to trust that something is not proven yet and it will be okay is, I think, one of the most important reasons to develop your intuition, because that also leads to the next one, which is improved self awareness. I trust my intuition. And whenever you trust your intuition, you can become more aware of your feelings and emotions. Because I'm so aware of my decision making process, I knew I wasn't purchasing that vehicle out of emotions. Even though I knew it was supposed to be my next vehicle, had they jacked up the price or added on something once I got there, I would have walked. I would have completely walked away. So it helps me make better decisions for myself because I trust me. And I know that when I've listened, most especially when I've listened to my intuition, I do really well. When I don't listen, it doesn't go so well. Like when I'm trying to be nice, or I'm trying to, not trying to people please, but I fall into that old pattern of people pleasing and not wanting to disappoint others, it doesn't go well. And now I realize that I'm not in charge of someone else's disappointment. I'm in charge of my delivery of the no thank you. So the improved self awareness is helped me in many situations about not overextending myself or just saying a no thank you. And that allows me to, next one, to be authentic. I am authentically myself. I have a mantra for my life: go authentically or don't go at all. So trusting my intuition helps me stay true to myself and make decisions that readily align with my values and my beliefs. And that may be that I agreed to go to a picnic, for instance. And on that day, I feel like I just am not feeling my authentic self unless it's for someone that I'm really, really close to. I'm not going to come. I will let you know I'm not coming. I'll probably tell you why I'm not coming. I will authentically say I am not feeling it today. I don't need to know why I don't want to go. I just need to know that I don't want to go. And it's not an excuse. It's a true feeling of this is not in my best interest. I actually did this a while ago, probably about 6 months ago, decided not to go, and then found out there was a huge COVID spread at the party. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Now I could have dug into that and felt like, why don't I want to go? I don't need to do that. Trusting intuition is how you stay true to yourself because it is your first sense. It is that soul connected intelligence. And if you're not going to listen to that, I just don't know how you can be an authentic being. And that goes to the next one. It gives you greater confidence because listening to and following through on those gut feelings, you build a better sense of self-surety in yourself. And this is very important, your decision-making abilities. So I have found for myself that when I'm unable to make a decision, it's because I have other people's energies affecting me and I'm allowing them to. It's not on them. I am allowing them to. But once I pull out of those energies and I do my white light and I surround myself and then I say, okay, Vicky, you are intuitive, you are intelligent, You are a caring being. What do you feel like is in your best interest here? My answers will be right there, and I'll know the steps to take. So it gives you greater confidence. And when it comes to coaching, I have great confidence in my intuitive abilities to get the hell out of the way of what is in the best interest of my client. Because I may not want to become a teacher in a public school system, but maybe my client does. It is none of my darn business, and it's rude to try to influence what I would want to do or not want to do with and mix it up in their decision. So I have a great confidence because I trust my intuition and I know energy. I know how to stay out of other people's stuff. That can piss people off. Not in the work. I've often found that people are pretty appreciative of that. But in personal relationships or family and stuff, if you have good boundaries and you know when to stay out of something, the other drama mamas don't always like it, but I don't care. The confidence I have because I trust my intuition, I also trust what's mine to be involved in and what's not. So that could be a great way for you to build boundaries and to trust your boundaries. Because when you have a knowing and a confidence in yourself, you won't let people walk all over you. This is going to sound a little ridiculous, but the more you improve and you act on your intuition, the more it improves. So the more you develop it, the more it will become strengthened and the more it will become more clear and more directed and sometimes feel like a force that's within you that you can't deny if you wanted to. So the more that you trust and you act on it, it's like the more you practice a back squat or the more that you know, I've seen people who knit these amazing sweaters and they're not even looking at their hands. And that's muscle memory, yes, but that's also improved intuition because you are asking a motor skill to work and you're not watching it and counting every little thing. So it's very much like that. You build the muscle of intuition the same way you build a muscle within your body or you build a neural pathway within your brain. And what does that lead to? Again, improved decision making. Ultimately, by trusting your intuition, you make better decisions. You're more aligned with your life, your needs, your desires, and it leads to greater personal fulfillment and satisfaction and joyfulness in life. And that is connected to the other one, the next one, which is number 9, which is personal growth. When you trust your intuition, it will help you grow and evolve as a person and a soul by encouraging you to take risks and try new things. I confided in to my partner not too long ago. It was only about a month ago. We had gone to do something and I was really aware that I wasn't nervous going in. And I shared with him that one of the things I loved the most about it was I felt sure of myself and I wasn't nervous. And this was like a get together with friends. There was no need to be nervous, but that would still have impacted me in times where I felt, insecure. And I said to him, I just felt so great. I felt so calm. I felt like I was very present and I felt sure of myself. And he said he was really surprised to hear that because in any situation we've been in, he's like, I never would have said you were nervous. And I said, well, of course not, because you never let him see you sweat. I was raised as a New Englander in an abusive household. I have developed some skills, my friend. I also have done very large crowds, like you groups and stuff. You can't allow that stage fright to take over, but this is the personal growth part. I recognized in that moment, I'm not feeling any discomfort. I'm feeling like I really belong here and that people want me here. And I'm like, this is personal growth, man. I am so proud of myself. And part of what got me to that event was trusting my intuition. Even though I was nervous, I trusted that this was a way for me to continue to expand and to believe in myself. And isn't that what we all want? Is to believe in ourselves and to trust that in the moment, I'm making the most educated, intuitive, heart-lined decision I can make for myself. And I feel like that's just a very powerful place to be. So the personal growth can be found in all places. That's why I encourage you developing your intuition and not thinking you have to go take all of the spiritual classes or all of the energy classes, because most of intuitive development happens in collaboration with your emotional and your mental exploration and expansion. Okay. So those classes may be great. And if you're drawn to them, fantastic. Go have a good time. But don't think that once you leave that, you're not developing your intuition everywhere else. You are. And what this leads to is improved creativity. When you're trusting your intuition and you're trusting yourself and you become self-aware and you've practiced improved decision making and your personal growth happens, that creativity will go through the roof. It'll help you come up with new ideas and new solutions and plan out a garden or make a gift for someone or plan a trip and hit all the spots that you want to hit because you love American diners. And when you do that, the creativity, you will then have a more joyful life. That experience that I was talking about, I took a class. There were two. One was with friends, and then there was one that followed right after that. And I took a Felton class. I'm all into taking classes lately. And part of it is because I want to expand my intuitive knowing and my self surety. So it may look like I'm taking a Felton class to learn how to do the Irish landscape, but what it really was for me was stepping into a room with a bunch of people I don't know and still feeling like this is no big deal. This is fun. We're just poking felt into felt. We're poking roving into felt. And the way I do it is fantastic. And I even came away from that with an awareness that I could grow more because I had an idea for my landscape and I didn't do it because I wanted to follow the rules. And if I talked to myself, my future self, just half an hour after that class, I wasn't disappointed. I was aware. I would have said, Vicky, run with that next time. No one's going to be upset. And even if they were, they can pound salt. It's your decision. But this is what being self aware and not critical can get you because I'm aware that next time those rocks really will become sheep on the countryside because that's what I felt like the rocks wanted to be were sheep, at least in my creation. And I didn't listen because I wanted to be the good girl and I wanted to follow rules for once. And I'm not the teacher in this class. And then I decided afterwards, well, that doesn't freaking matter. I am an adult and I can do what I want. So that was an example of, to me, that I didn't listen to my intuition and go with cute sheep on the side of the countryside. And I stuck with the rocks, which ended up being great because I learned how to make little flowers and stuff to go around them. But to have my most aligned experience, I would have listened to that sheep thing, made them sheep, and then had a good giggle about it. So the improved creativity will come along when you trust your intuition. And that may be that you take a position with a company because it's not the greatest salary that you've ever made, but their mission is something that speaks to your heart. And you're like, I just have to trust this. I feel like this is right. And then, half a month after you sign up and you become an employee, they get the biggest contract of their business. And then your salary does go up because they're able to do that. So it can show up in so many ways. But these are what I feel like some building blocks and maybe some encouragements of how to see the application of intuition beyond doing a reading or flipping your cards or creating a spread or using a pendulum or anything like that. It is so in every moment of your life, and it makes creating a joyful life that much easier. So, those are my top 10 reasons for why you may doubt, but also the reasons why you ought to trust. And please know that all of this is process. It's trusting it, it's practicing, it's being wrong or getting more information. It's figuring out what is your gift, what is your interest in it. There are some absolutely amazing artists. We went to, as a little aside, we went to a punk rock flea market yesterday. And as you can imagine, there were a lot of skulls and there was a lot of dark stuff. And there were things that I think general population might deem as scary or just, I'm not going to label it. There was this one booth and I took her card because I will be ordering one of her shirts. Her, what'd she call it? Dead girl artist, or something like that. I'll put the link in the show notes. I loved her work. I felt like if you looked at it, think Wednesday of the Addams Family, okay? If you looked at that, if some people looked at it, maybe not you, but some people looked at it, they'd be like, wow, that's kind of morbid, that's kind of dark and everything. It was so happy. Like I got giddy standing there and I got to talk to the artist and I express my joy. And I was bummed I didn't buy the shirt I wanted to buy. So I'm going to go buy it. Because it was the cutest bat I've ever seen, and I want that. I wanna wear that shirt and support an artist. So, things like this, you can help bring your creativity out. I am sure she taps into her intuition and her energy field when she creates that art because it was so happy. It was so happy. So, I hope for you that you listen to what guides you to happy, and if any of those 10 reasons or some others that I didn't hit on come up around the fear of developing intuition, figure out where that message is coming from. If it's coming from outside of you, say, I hear you, I respect you, no thank you. And then remember, you don't have to share this and your development and your expansion with anyone until such time, if you ever do, feel completely blessed to be developing your intuition. So thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Intuition, Your Success Compass. I appreciate you being here. If you would like more information about developing your intuitive skills, removing those blocks, and creating the life that feels the most successful to you, then head on over to vickibaird.com. That's VICKIBAIRD.com. And check out the courses, the groups, and the Spaces app that will allow you to be part of our community and know about upcoming events and specials. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode.